This morning we will finish our series called The Return of the King. And I don't really want to finish it, but I have to. We can't keep talking about the return of the King. Now we just wait. But somehow it's going to end in the Great Tribulation. This is like from a sci-fi movie, the science fiction. But it's not. Okay, so I'll explain that. So this is the number 7. You know why? Because the Bible, the time of John, number 7 is what? Is a symbol, is a number of perfection and completeness. So we can't go beyond number 7 in our sermon series of it. So, but before that, let me ask, I need some survey. I need your input. Who the fault should be, or where the blame should be. Okay, let me ask you this question. But I'll tell you what the story toward that question. So what happened was, I was last Sunday morning, I was warming up a cold almond milk. Because I don't like to drink cold, right? I like warm. So I was warming up an almond milk in a cup from Starbucks, and as soon as the microwave finished, as soon as I touched that cup, it just burned my fingers. Like my thumb was burned, my pointy, my middle finger. I mean, you can still see all the damage in here, even after all the polyspore and all that stuff. But here's the thing. Whose fault is it going to be? Because the mug looks really nice. No, it's not one of those you are here mug that I always buy around the world. It's something else. It looks really nice. It looks silver. Now, I didn't know that there was at the bottom, if you flip the mug, it says do not microwave. But why is it has to be like hidden somewhere? That's what I was thinking. It's not my fault that I can't flip the mug and that's what I was arguing to myself. So it's going to be the fault of the mug maker. So after I got burned, I mean, I don't know if you noticed last Sunday, but there was a miracle in my life. Because my hand was burning so hot, I was carrying this cold water. So I was sitting there while we were singing. I would dip it because it was like the most cool thing I could feel. Otherwise, it was burning hot. So then I was praying, God, I don't want to bring this cup while I stand up here. So then there was a miracle that it stopped. But so who's to blame? Is it me for not flipping the mug and reading, or is it the mug maker? Obviously, I don't blame myself, right? It's always like, you're always right, right? So if you think I should blame the mug maker, raise your hand. Oh, if you think I should blame myself, raise your hand. No. That's not fair. Okay, but here's an added twist to that story, okay? So the mug, basically, I was so angry with that mug, I threw it in the garbage. It was so beautiful and nice, expensive probably, but I threw it in the garbage. Because I don't want somebody else, my loved one, to get burned with it. But here's the twist to that. A few days before that, my wife was actually burned with the same mug, doing the same thing. But she didn't throw it in the garbage. So now, should I blame? Yes. Okay, so should I blame my wife? Raise your hand. Some agreed with me. I said, why don't you just throw that in the garbage? If you did, I wouldn't have burned my fingers. But there are so many things. Okay, so the reason why I went to that is because when it comes to the second coming, a lot of people are burned with that. For example, I don't know if you noticed, 1992, if you remember, South Koreans, they left their jobs, sold their homes, and waited for Jesus because He was coming, according to their leader. In 1993, in Waco, Texas, David Cres, remember that? The Vivian compound? He was gathering people to wait for the end times. And so basically the whole place he just burned the whole place. They like destroyed the place. And so there are so many stories like that. And it makes people wonder whether I should believe the Bible. Because these things are happening. So who is it to blame? Is it the David Koresh of people, or is it the followers? Because some people also blame the Bible. They say, Christianity is a hoax, Bible is not true. But you blame me for not flipping the cup and not reading. People must be blamed also for not opening the Bible and reading what it says. So that's why we have all these series on the end times. And this series hopefully reminds us and gives us some information of what will take place. So a quick review, because some of you weren't here. Quick review. We began from 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, which talks about, those verses talk about that the end times, there's a tribulation that's coming, but before the tribulation, there is the, what we call in the Christian world, the rapture. The rapture is not the end time yet, it's the time where Christians, according to 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, okay, the Christians will be raptured to be with Christ before the beginning of the 7-year tribulation. Now that's not all Christians believe that. There are also Christians who believe that we will go through the tribulation, the 7-year tribulation. And there are some good also argument for that. But I'm just saying to you, all the text that we did is all pre-tribulation, meaning we will be with Christ before the tribulation. So, but those people who believe, Christians who believe of the that we will go through tribulations, they're also Christian, okay? They're not non-Christian. They just think something else. But it doesn't affect your salvation, really. It does affect, however, how you are going to live. Because if you are going to fear with all your lives that the tribulation is coming, then you'll adjust your life accordingly. Or if you feel the peace that I'm not going to go through that. So it does affect. It doesn't affect your salvation. It affects how you somehow react to things. So so basically our text today in Revelation 13, the context is so that we are in the 7-year tribulation. Now halfway of that tribulation, the 7-year, is called the Great. See, there's the tribulation and then there's the Great Tribulation. And I'll let you know why it's called the Great. Okay, so because, look, if you open your Bible, Revelation chapter 13, I'm going to start reading from verse 2. Revelation chapter 13. This context, chapter 13, is the Great Tribulation. It says like this in verse 2. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. And then it says, the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and the great authority. Now if you continue reading, I'll stop from there, but it looks like this is like from science fiction stuff, right? But remember, the book of Revelation is an apocalyptic, meaning it has like end times language. So apocalyptic has symbols, they have numbers, and they have visions. So it's not what it is. It's not what it says it is. In other words, you need to study more what all these things. And so that's what we're going to talk about basically. So One guy, he said, he's Professor Hines, he says that the end of the world, he thinks, is November 13, 2026. So that's like 7.5 years from now. He says, he based that conclusion on his calculation of the exploding world population. And so he said that we will actually not starve to death, but we will be squeezed to death with so many people. That's his calculation, 2026. So another guy who's trying to guess. But I think, throughout history, a lot of people have assigned the Antichrist. People assigned, they thought it was Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler. At one point, Bill Clinton was also an Antichrist, they thought. And also the other one is the Pope is also assigned as the Antichrist. The head of the United Nations. And then also Obama. Have you heard all those? Yeah, they've assigned all that Antichrist. But I think I know who it is. Are you ready? I have absolutely no idea. No one, my job today is not to assign the people, it's not to assign the date, it's to explain to us what the Bible says. And you decide. Basically, 3 things about this feast. This feast during the Great Tribulation. 3 things. Number 1 is about the worship of the beast. Because it says in verse 4 of Revelation chapter 13, it goes like this. Men worship the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worship the beast and ask, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? So remember, apocalyptic language. This is about symbols and numbers. So the beast and the dragon. The dragon, we don't know, we don't need to guess who the dragon is. Because if you keep reading toward Revelation, even Revelation 12 and 20, it says that the dragon is that old serpent, Satan. So we know that we don't need to guess. The beast is the Antichrist, as studied by theologians and biblical scholars. So the beast is the Antichrist. And so the book of Daniel says that the Antichrist will come as a great peacemaker. He will unite the world, but at the end he will destroy the world with peace. Because he unites people, but halfway toward this tribulation, 3.5 years, he will basically destroy the world with peace. In fact, verse 8, if we keep reading verse 8, it says like this in verse 8. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the book of life, belonging to the Lamb that was slain from the creation of the world. So basically this beast is the Antichrist. I'm reading from a theologian here. Bear with me, this is kind of long. But he says that the manifestations of evil which have marked human history at the end of the age be concentrated in one final incarnation of evil, a Superman, the Antichrist, who will exercise a worldwide rule, deify the state, and achieve a union of church and state, so that men will be forced to worship him or suffer economic sanctions and death. Antichrist, energized by satanic powers, will specially direct his hostility against God and the people of God. So this is about the Antichrist. And Revelation 13, if you keep reading there, the purpose of this beast, or what we call the unholy ambition of this beast, Let me just go through. Number one, this Antichrist. Verse 4, he wants to exalt Satan. Because it says, so they worshiped the dragon and gave authority to the beast. They worship the beast also. So the beast, the Antichrist, is actually a person. His goal is to exalt Satan. Why is that? Because Satan wants to be exalted. In fact, let me remind you of Isaiah 14, what Satan wants to do. His goal was, we call it the 5 I will of Satan. Okay, he says, this is in Isaiah 14, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, that's the second I will, and I will sit on the mount of the congregation, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. He wants to be God, this Satan, this dragon. And so this Antichrist is one of the persons who will unite the world to worship and to exalt Satan. Also, this Antichrist is to blaspheme Christ. Verse 5, and he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemous. So he blasphemed Christ. And also he wants to destroy followers of Jesus. Because verse 7 says, and it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Now, just in case you're wondering, okay, so maybe you're thinking in your mind, I know what some of you are thinking. If the rapture happens before the tribulation, so why is this Antichrist, this madman, is able to, it says here, to make the saints, to overcome the saints, to destroy the saints. So, there are Christians. Now, from a pre-trib, so remember that view is pre-trib, it is actually viewed as Christian, people who become Christians during the tribulation. So there are Christians, there are people who become followers of Jesus during the tribulation. While the Christians who became Christian now, before that took place, is with Jesus. That's the pre-trib view, okay? So the other one is he wants to control the world. Verse 7, he was given the authority to control. So he wants global dominance, global control. So for those of you who are afraid of this, it's like, man, this is something that I don't want to go through. Okay, if you are a pre-trib view, then you don't need to go through this because you know Christ comes and you are with Christ and this takes place. But if you think that you will be going through this, then just remember, see, I'm speaking to both crowds now, right? Just remember that in verse 7 and 14, it says that he was given the authority, this Antichrist. Obviously, the context is that his authority is coming from the dragon, from Satan. But if you look at the greater context about the reign and the rule of God, then actually even Satan needs permission from God. So the overall context is nothing happens to his followers, to Jesus' follower, unless someone gets the authority, like Job in the Bible. So that's the worship of the beast. Here's the second one about the beast, the power. Let's talk about the power of the beast. In verse 12 to 13, can we read this together? Ready? It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Now, there are two beasts. No, one is not the beauty and the beast. We're not talking about them. There are two beasts. The first one is the Antichrist. And if you read the context, the other beast is actually a person, a false prophet, who works under the other beast, the Antichrist. So the Antichrist has a person. Now throughout history, maybe you've never heard of this, but throughout history, the first beast, according to the theologian and biblical scholars, they view that first beast as the Roman Empire. It was a great Roman Empire. Now, the second beast is still coming. According to the theologians and biblical scholars, the first beast is not really, it's an empire. But the second one is a religious institution. Because if you look at, listen to verse 11. Okay, let me read to you verse 11. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. So he was like a lamb. Who's the lamb in the Revelation? Jesus, right? But he was also speaking like a dragon. So in other words, he was a religious institution or a person, but he was actually working for Satan. So the view is that this last beast is going to be someone who is going to unite the world. And you know, we try to separate the state and religion, right? Well, this beast unites state and religion, and so they become one. So in other words, this is a religious organization who has dominance around the world, and also he has influence, the head of this organization. So basically, the dragon is Satan, the beast is the Antichrist, and the second beast is the false prophet, the agent. Now if you think about that, there is Holy Trinity, right? Father, Son, and Spirit. Where in this text, there's also an unholy Trinity. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Because Satan likes to copy God. Remember, he wants to be like the Most High. And he wants to mimic God in every way. Let me just tell you a story, just to kind of get your mind at ease. I confirmed with my wife this morning, because I kind of forget all the details. Basically, I heard a story I was talking to another pastor who was telling this story to us about this daughter whose mother died, but they can't find the will. They don't know where the mother put the will. It doesn't matter whether you say if there is a will, there's a way. They can't find, no way, they can't find it. So they decided, here's what they did, okay? They decided to use one of their maid, their helper. I don't know why it has to be them, but they asked a quack doctor, or whatever you call them, someone who works in spiritista, evil stuff. The spiritista, the quack doctor, the request was to ask the spirit of the dead grandmother to go into the maid who was lying down, so that they can ask the grandmother through the voice of the maid where that will is. And so in the process, so they did all this stuff, and at the end, the voice of the grandmother showed up. Now this is getting more scary, right? And as soon as the question was asked, where is the will? That's why you should not give your children a hard time, okay? Do your will and give. And the voice came, and it was the sound of the grandmother saying that it was at the back of the portrait on the wall. And they checked. It was the voice of the grandmother. And they checked. Lo and behold, it was there. So then the question is, because we know the Bible tells us, the Bible says that the moment we die, our spirits are not here. King Solomon even started that. You know, when he said, the moment you die, you meet your maker, basically. You're not here. And the moment you die, it's appointed to man to die once, Hebrews 9:27, and then to face judgment. So, in other words, there is no spirits beside you. Nothing here. There's no one. Otherwise, there'll be billions of spirits. Because how many people died in the past? Billions, right? There's no room for people and spirit in this world. So the Bible is clear. No spirit. The moment you die, your body is there, your spirit leaves. That's why it's called death. That's the meaning of death. Separation. Separate. So, but what happened there? You see, Satan likes to mimic God, to copy God, to be deified, to be exalted. Satan has more information than you and I. He doesn't have as much compared to God because he works only as he is allowed. We know that from the scripture. So basically the idea is, this Satan, he wants, just as there is a holy trinity, there is an unholy trinity. He's mimicking God. But remember, this second beast, the Antichrist, is a religious person, institution. He is like a lamb, but he's actually speaking like a dragon. Remember Jesus in 7:15 in Matthew says, be careful, watch out for false prophets like wolves in sheep's clothing. And so the devil imitates God. We need to test every spirit. So the method of this Antichrist, this second beast, is the false prophet, that is he wants to perform with fire. So he does that in verse 13. And he also performs with the image in verse 15. Even he was able to resurrect the beast. So another copycat of the resurrection. He was about to die. And so three marks basically. Verse 13, the fire and the image. And then the third mark is the beast. The mark of the beast. It says in verse 16 to 18. This is one of the trademark of this false prophet. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. So it's a person. That number is 666. Okay, so this has puzzled people throughout history. What is that 666? And that is what we're going to discuss, because that is the mark of the beast. No one, no matter what your social class or influence, you can't buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. This number 666. And believers are not allowed. If you can't have the mark, then you can't sell or buy or anything. What is that number 666? Okay, in general, this is what the number 666 is. To explain that, what is the number 7 again? Perfection, right? There's another number in the Bible that's also completeness, number 3. And if you look at the Bible there, the number 3 is very important. For example, 3 angels showed up with Abraham in Genesis. Also, Noah. No, not Noah, Jonah. Noah in the belly of the whale. Noah was in the well 3 days and 3 nights. And obviously the ultimate example is Jesus. He was resurrected on the 3rd day. So number 7 and number 3 are all biblical numbers representing completeness. So number 7 is complete. So 3, 7, what is that? That's even more complete, right? It's the complete of complete. 3, 7. The opposite of that is number 6. 6, 6, 6 is the opposite of perfection. So really, in general, this is a person who is the opposite of God. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not a time to assign who it is. It's just a general understanding that this person is someone doing the opposite of what God is trying to do. So the idea is he will put the mark. Some people think it's an actual mark on your hand or on your forehead. Some people think it's symbolic, because remember, Revelation is all about numbers and symbols. But either way, you will be marked. I'm not saying we will be marked, because I don't think I'm here. If you believe you are here, you will be marked. If you are not marked, you can't by yourself. Now, how will they do that? Okay, so listen to this as I conclude this this message. The idea of a mark is a way to control people. How will they do that? Number 1, cashless society would be one possibility. Do you know that in Sweden, it could be the first country that could be cashless society? This was as of March of 2018. Because in Sweden, we have more access to cards than to cash. And as I mentioned to this church, I've never used cash to pay anything in the last 3 years or something like that. I always use my card because I get points, air miles. So cashless society. Second, smart card. Do you know that smart card existed in 1999, 20 years ago? What is the purpose of smart card? Think about that. This is 20 years ago. Technology was really weak back then. The smart card, your identity will be digital. That's the use of smart cards. It says this is from PC Magazine, 1999, okay, 20 years ago. This author, he says, the use of smart cards paves the way for their acceptance as standard security devices, whether in conjunction with passwords or biometrics data, to protect your digital identity by letting you carry that identity embedded in the chip on a card rather than having to store it somewhere. And then an Associated Press article says this: researchers have created a computer circuitry in a single molecule, a breakthrough that could open a brave new world of tiny computers, billions of times more powerful than the current PCs, and sensor that could be injected, listen to this, into your bloodstream. That's from an AP article. So there is a way to control, and this was like, that story was 1999. If you just find out what's going on before, after 1999 to now, it's pretty big. But here's how I'm gonna end, okay? Because this is kind of a sad ending if you plan to be here during that time. But you know what? it's okay, because that is not really the end goal. The end goal, if you look at Revelation, is not destruction. No, no, no. It's far from it. The end goal is restoration. Here's how we're going to end. Because in the book of Revelation, you find an invitation. This invitation, starting from verse 1, this is the last chapter of the Bible. It actually, the end goal of the whole idea is not destruction, but restoration. There's an invitation that says, "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb." If I read in verse 17, it says also that the Spirit and the bride say, "Come." And let the one who hears say, "Come." Let the one who is thirsty come. And let the one who wishes to take the free gift of the water of life. So actually there's an invitation to participate in the restoration. If you look, the idea of, let me just give you a bigger picture as we close. The idea is that God created the Garden of Eden. A much beautiful thing that God created. But along the ways, Satan tempted human beings, starting with Eve and then Adam. So who should we blame? Satan, Eve, or Adam? The blame continues. But the plan of God was He could have avoided sin. He would have, the question I've been asked many times, would God have known that Adam and Eve would sin? Of course. Would have been able to stop them from sinning? Oh, of course. But the question is, would He? If He wants us to love Him with all our heart, soul, and mind, He can't control us like robots. So His plan of the Garden of Eden, it was all marred by sin. And the creation of the plan of God is the restoration. And so there is that invitation for you and for me to come and have that river of life.